Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 310 of the All Dolphins podcast. I am joined today by award winning South Florida Sun Sentinel columnist Dave Hyde. How are you, Dave Hyde?
I'm good. I got my cigar from the Panthers celebration, so it'd be nice to smoke one of these for the Dolphins one of these years, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? Just watch that crowning achievement on the final night. It'd be that's the last one for me. I've seen the Heat win. I've seen the Marlins win. Panthers now. So of the big four sports, and I'm waiting on the Dolphins.
Hell,
This is the year.
we'd smoke a cigar for a playoff win, wouldn't we? Like, all right, forget smoking the cigar, but get a cigar because for me, cigar smoke, like, yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, as far as I was on hand. I was not covering the Panthers anymore this year. Of course, this is when they go out and win the Stanley Cup. But I covered them for probably like 25 of their 30 years, and it's been such a blast watching what they've done with the Stanley Cup. I'm actually a little disappointed I'm not seeing the Stanley Cup in your place over there.
Yeah, we can talk about it'd be a tough thing rating the different championships, the Heat compared to the Marlins, compared to the Panthers. But I will say the Panthers celebration is far and away number one. What they've done with it, you saw Roberto Luongo eating pasta
Mm-hmm.
out of it, and going to one of the nightclubs on South Beach, and of course the Elbow Room going in the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, they brought it to the people, and it's been a blast to watch.
I mean, Matthew Kachuk and his father like pouring beer from the second floor of the Elbow Room to fans on the street. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and then you have Barkov taking it to his neighbors at 4 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Stanley Cup is, you know, forget comparing sports and all that, but the Stanley Cup is the greatest trophy in sports because of what they do with it. They do stuff every year. There's stories that come out. This is the first time we've seen it daily because it's the first time a local team's won. But there's stories like this through hockey of through the years of what players have done with the cup, and now it's our turn.
Correct, and it's also the biggest trophy that makes it cool. I mean, because you see the Lombardi Trophy and
Yeah,
what is this called, the Larry O'Brien Trophy for the NBA? I mean, they're like
yeah,
third
yeah.
of the size. That Stanley Cup is huge, um, but that was great stuff. Do you see any correlation parallels relating what the Panthers have done to the Dolphins?
Well, I think I don't know if I've mentioned this here. The correlation is this. We sit here and we talk about personnel and oh well, they had a good draft this year. They good draft. There's another layer to it though, and that is systems. Okay, to me, the Panthers, Bill Zito made a really tough decision a few years ago. And I get from his standpoint, I've talked to him about it. And look, they had a wide open offensive system. Um, you'd go to games, if they got up to 7 goals, fans would be chanting, "We want 10, we want 10," because it was a fun atmosphere, it was a fun product to watch. They get to the playoffs, they're not. You can't win in hockey that way.
Correct.
And so they do a 180. They bring in Paul Maurice with a very defensive first system, um, very tough system to play physically, mentally, um, and yet here they are, 2020, what 20? They win the President's Cup as the best regular season team.
Mm-hmm.
Last year with the new change, they go to the finals. This year they win. So the correlation is this, and I haven't formulated an opinion on this. I love watching
Why
Mike
not?
McDaniel's. Yeah, I know. I can make one up right now,
Okay.
but I guess a conclusion. Mike McDaniel's wide open offense, okay, and it beats up on bad teams, and because between superior coaching and superior personnel, you see it. They get against good defenses, and they don't have that physical component um, to that championship teams have. Now, can they develop that? Um, or not, or can you win this way? Um, but if there's a correlation that's going around in my mind, and think it's that one is can you win this way? And I haven't come to a conclusion that you can't. Um, but it would be an outlier in the NFL. You don't see. I don't want to. Is it a finesse team? I don't know. It's a speed team. It's a um, and you have seen speed teams win, but they have a very physical component too. I think of Jimmy Johnson's teams. He introduced the concept of speed, smaller, safeties who became linebackers,
Yeah.
linebackers who became defensive ends into football. But that was a very physical team too. Those lines were very physical. If there's a correlation, I guess that would be the one that's rattling around in my mind.
That's the one I brought up several times on the podcast as well. So,
Okay.
and I will say that 2022 Panthers regular season was about the coolest thing I've ever covered.
Yes.
I mean,
it was fun.
oh my God, they were so much fun. Except we got into the playoffs. They were playing Washington in the first round, and I told some of the fellow Panther writers, I think they're going to lose in the first round, and they didn't. But
they came close. They came close to losing. Yeah.
Correct. And then they got swept by Tampa Bay, and it was like, and my whole point the whole time was like, as awesome as it was in the regular season, that's not going to work in the playoffs. However, the comparison point to me for the Dolphins and why I don't dismiss the possibility of them being able to win a Super Bowl the way they play now is the 1999 St. Louis Rams.
Yes.
Whose offense was built on speed, and it was a finesse. They did have Orlando Pace, who was a stud left tackle, but the Dolphins have Teron Armstead, who's a stud left tackle. And maybe one of these years, like Tua last year, maybe this is a year Teron Armstead stays healthy the whole year and plays 17 games. The thing is the margin for error is much smaller because, again, it's easier to take a rhythm timing team off its game than it is a physical power team off its game. And that's having said that, because it's been 2 years now with the Mike McDaniel and the system and all that, are we at a point close? Are we getting close to the point where obviously they're doing the same thing again this year, hoping they don't have the injury issues they had down the stretch? Are we at a point though that if they go again a third straight year and it doesn't pan out, doesn't produce results, and it's another, let's say, one and done in the playoffs, are we going to be at a point where we need to seriously consider changing approach?
Yeah, or adding on to the approach. Adding, okay, we got to get more physical. How do we do that? And whether it's on the offensive line, really is where it starts. Short yardage plays, physical running between the tackles. Do they need to do that? And again, I'm not at a conclusion because I'm with you. The Rams are the really the only comparison I can come up with that, and they came, they were not only fun to watch, they came within a play of winning the Super Bowl. So
no, they didn't win the Super Bowl that year. Dave, I'm talking about the '99 Rams. They won when they beat Tennessee in the Super Bowl when they tackled
right. Then they got beat. Then they got beat by
the Rams.
The Patriots.
Sorry, the Patriots.
The Rams. Yeah. Okay. I'm fogging up here going back. The question becomes, 3 years in, now they've added components to the offense. It looks like they'll have a tight end who can, and I've called it Plan B. Look, Plan A, we know who Plan A is. Tyreek Hill. It's Jalen Waddle, and some of the other components they have. But Plan B, now they have a tight end. They have some different running backs now that have a little more experience. Chan has more experience this year, right? So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, if after 3 years we're seeing the same thing where they're beating up on bad defenses and struggling in December or against good defenses, then I was talking to a GM this year and he said something interesting, and he said, if you have bad line play, it really starts to show itself in November, December, when teams not only know what you're doing, but all of a sudden the weather comes into play, and the physical teams are gearing up for the playoffs by playing more physical. And I hadn't thought of that or heard of that, but it's something I'm going to keep a watch on. Does November, December, your if you have questionable lines, does that start to expose itself?
No, I think there's absolutely merit to that. And I also think you see defenses get more in Tyreek and Jalen Waddle's face close to the line of scrimmage and try to disrupt the timing. Because I think the Dolphins have shown that if you let them get a free release, more than likely they're going to get open pretty quickly, and more than likely Tua is going to get on the ball.
And that's where I think like you get a Jonas Smith. Not his numbers aren't huge, but all of a sudden if he's the third or fourth or fifth option for a defense to cover, probably third or fourth, all of a sudden, yeah, he becomes a very interesting target for the Dolphin offense. And some of the other stuff, I'm sure. Look, Mike McDaniel went into last offseason. The big question right out of the gates was, oh, how's he going to counteract the Chargers? You remember all that? So, and bam, he took care of that right away, very simply. Put Tyreek Hill in motion so they couldn't jam him at the line, and a few other things. But I'm sure he's spent an offseason thinking about this stuff and how to make it all work. So I'm curious to see, come September, what it all looks like.
No question. And by the way, this is the part, and I forgot to do this at the top of the show, where I'm going to ask you to hit that like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. Tell your friends, your neighbors, everybody. If you enjoy the Old Dolphins podcast and the history lesson, yes, there's going to be one. It's going to be a quick one. This is episode 310, so we'll look back at 2010, starting with the draft, where the Dolphins actually made a trade in the first round. They traded down, if you remember this, Dave. They had the 12th overall pick. They traded to the Chargers for a first-round pick, number 28. They got an extra second-round pick, and they got linebacker Tim Dobbins, and they may have been in a fourth-round pick thrown in there. And the two players the Dolphins got with those two picks were Jared Odrick, who I will maintain was a very good player, except I think he had too much of an opinion for a lot of NFL teams, which is why his career didn't last terribly long. And then Koa Misi in the second round, and Koa Misi was meh. And the Chargers at number 12 took Ryan Matthews, a running back from Fresno State, who had some decent years, but was never a great player. Later on, Dolphins start off with back-to-back road wins, if you recall, against Buffalo, Minnesota. They were 2-0. Chad Henne had been given the starting job at quarterback 2 years after he had been a second-round pick, and after Chad Pennington had been knocked out for the season in the third game of 2009. Henne was a starter until it was a game against Tennessee, week 9 or week 10. He gets injured. Chad Pennington comes in as a backup. Last two plays, injured again. So they have to go to Tyler Thigpen. They have a game against the Bears 4 nights later on a Thursday night game. Tyler Thigpen has to start because Henne and Pennington are hurt, and Dolphins got beat 16-0. They did wind up getting themselves to 7-6, lost their last three, wound up 7-9 in what was a series of seasons that were like completely forgettable because it was always 8-8, 7-9, maybe 9-7. No, they weren't named. There wasn't even any 9-7 in there, but it was 8-8 or 7-9. So, anything out of that stands out to you? Or
well, let me get a trivia question. What's Jared Odrick doing now? Do you know?
Yes, I saw that very recently. The fish tank had him, and he was racing.
He's racing. He's a race car. I'm just fascinated. What was he, like 6'5", 6?
Yeah,
probably. Yeah. Him folding up that body into a race car is, or getting out of it. So, but I'm with you. He's one of the more interesting guys.
Yes, he was.
He thought off the reservation a little. Yes, he did. And he got his big contract in Jacksonville when he left the Dolphins, and he got out of football quick.
Yes, he did. I think quicker than his talent suggested that he should have. But that's a different story. Okay, so getting back to our 2024 Dolphins, the big conversation, we can't avoid it. Sorry, I know some people are very tired of talking about it, but you can't avoid it. I'm talking about, of course, Javon Holland and his no, I'm kidding. I kid. Tua, again, that's a contract situation. The report today, this week from Jeff Darlington of ESPN, South Florida dude who's very well connected to the Dolphins, saying that Dolphins are not at this time going anywhere or going where the market is the market, which means Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence. What do you make of all of this, and how do you see this being resolved, if it is resolved, or is it possible Tua plays on the 5th-year option?
Yeah, I think. Look, there's no deadline right now, right? There wasn't for Goff or for Trevor Lawrence in some regards either. But what's the deadline? The start of training camp, the start of the NFL season. I mean, those are really the two next lines to cross. So we're kind of in a dead zone here. But my bottom line is this: I take this as good news. Okay, in that. Let's start here. What do they have in Tua? Okay, they have a good quarterback. Can he be great? And that's the question. That's can he be healthy, and can he be great? And so if I'm sitting there with the Dolphins, I don't want to pay great money for a good quarterback. That's where you really get into trouble in a salary cap world. And it's because for all the obvious reasons, you're going to have to put lesser talent around them to pay for his contract. So this is a tough contract, though. It's a tough contract to crack as far as what is fair when you see Trevor Lawrence getting what did he get? 275 million over 5 years, 142 million fully guaranteed
At signing.
at signing. So what is a fair contract? And that's obviously the sticking point, because Tua is rightfully saying, as he did, the market's the market.
Yep.
And the Dolphins are rightfully saying, but a year ago you had all these concussion problems, and look at our record and our problems against good teams, and how much is system, how much is him, and so again, it's a tough contract. Should he play on the 5th-year option? Look, if I was hardballing it, if I was the Dolphins, I would. Now, that hasn't been their way with Tua, of playing hardball. Of course, they never have really had a decision to make with him, because he was a starting quarterback. You're 1,000% behind the starting quarterback. And Mike McDaniel, and all the good senses. I mean, he's a very positive coach, and buoys his that's his way of getting the best out of his players. And so right from the start, he's been positive. This is really their first decision to make with Tua of consequence. And I think he'll get signed, but the question becomes, how do you protect the franchise if in week 4 he has another concussion and he's out for weeks and weeks, and now you got career questions, and you've thrown all this money into him. And how do you pay Tua fairly for a guy who is he's a top 15 quarterback? And so
That's not going to go over well. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I haven't really actually sat there, and I would guess 10 to 15, somewhere in there. Yeah. I saw Phil Simms had him ranked 19th, which was a little surprising. But the bottom line is, can you win a Super Bowl with him with lesser talent around him? And that's going to be, if I'm running the Dolphins, that's my question.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm not revealing state secrets when I say he's extraordinarily polarizing in so many different ways, because you have, as you mentioned, it's Chris Simms has him 19. You have Dan Orlovsky on the other side saying there's not 5 quarterbacks who can operate the Dolphin system the way this guy does. And can we agree maybe that the reality is somewhere in between? Sure. And you mentioned Jared Goff, and this is where I'm going to flat out say it. You talked about not wanting to give a great contract to a good quarterback. To me, that's exactly what the Detroit Lions did.
Yeah.
This is where they did the Dolphins no favors whatsoever. And the thing with Goff also that makes it even worse is the dude's been in the league since 2016. You know what he is right now. And while he has some statistically very good numbers, and he did go to the Super Bowl with the Rams, yeah, they still traded him because they thought they needed an upgraded quarterback. So let's not pretend like Jared Goff is the difference maker who's going to be the one to get the Detroit Lions their Super Bowl.
Well, he did go to the Super Bowl. The Rams went the NFC Championship game with the Lions. So, there's a portfolio there that says, okay, he can be part of a very, very good team. And
yeah,
we don't
but
have that. We don't have that with Tua. We have, I keep hearing people say, well, their window for the Super Bowl is closing. They haven't even won a playoff game. I mean, let's not be talking about windows for Super Bowls. Okay, that's a giant step. And so, you know, I hate to put the bar at a playoff win because that's ridiculous, especially their system of the way they've been the last 5 years of tanking to be great, and now all of a sudden if they win a playoff game, oh, it's a celebration. But I mean, there are steps to becoming a champion in general, and it starts with having some playoff success. So let's not Super Bowl contention. You can throw out anything you want to, I guess, but they haven't contended the last few years.
no, but I think that, but they're the type of team because of what they have, the talent level they have, that it's not stupid to say if everything was
Right,
right, they could get there.
right. Okay,
Uh,
okay. I agree.
but I'm going to take exception, and this is where, and by the way, I hope people notice that I do this not just with a certain quarterback, but I'm going to say, yeah, Jared Goff went to the Super Bowl, and then last year went to the NFC Championship game. Sure, also had the best offensive line in the NFL,
Yeah.
one of the best running back tandems with Gibbs and the other dude. The other running back escapes me right now. Was it David Montgomery? Stud wide receivers with St. Brown and Jamison Williams, the speedster, and then they got a stud tight end with Sam Laporta. So I think
Yeah, I get it. I
you could
get
say
it.
he was a lot more of a passenger than the driver of the train. Is the way I would put it. But the other point I was going to make is like Trevor Lawrence, for example, is based on a belief that his ceiling is much higher than what he's shown so far, and Tua's kind of somewhat in between. He's got more longer body of work than Lawrence, so you have more of an idea of what his ceiling is going to be. But to me, it's still not 100% definite. Certainly not like Goff, who we know what Goff is. And like I said, if I'm the Dolphins, I say thanks for nothing, Jaguars and Lions.
Yeah. Should the question becomes, should the Dolphins have signed Tua before all this? Before now, we don't know what numbers they were throwing back and forth at each other then, and maybe even then it wasn't something the Dolphins liked. Um, but again, this is a tough contract. And we can be critical of this or critical of this side, but what is the right number is going to become the question. Because I believe they want to sign him. I believe they don't want to go into this season with this hanging over him. But I'm at a loss for um, saying, well, this is the number they should be at right now. And 'cause I haven't. You look at the numbers for Golf, and now Golf got a lot less guaranteed, 113 million guaranteed compared to Trevor Lawrence's. We're talking at the signing, 142 million guaranteed. Um, and that factors into where's the off ramp in the contract. Where can you get out of it without you know you know crushing your next 4 or 5 years. So I'm sure that's the question right now is guaranteed money and what is equitable, what's the market up from Tua's side, and what's something we can live with if you're the Dolphins.
Yeah, and to the question that's very often asked, in fact, including very recently in a column by a former colleague of both you and I, what's the plan B if the Dolphins don't sign Tua? Well, first of all, there does need to be a plan B immediately. That's the number one thing, and it's like fifth-year option this year, franchise tag next year, or if he completely balls out, then you give him the long-term contract extension next year. So it's not like they have to come up with another quarterback. Also, can we not realize that it's not like there haven't been quarterbacks with 100 or more passer ratings that have been replaced? Jimmy Garoppolo, Jared Goff. There's another one who escapes me. So again,
well, Garoppolo is and Purdy are the obvious examples to me. because it's a straight line from San Francisco's offense to what Mike McDaniel's doing. Obviously, differences because you got some different players, but the core is
Correct.
similar. And if I'm Chris Greer or Tom Garfinkel or Brandon Shore, whoever's assembling the information and contract, I sit Mike McDaniel in a private room, tell him this will never get out. We just need to know can how many quarterbacks can run this offense, and could we get a Purdy, um, and keep this talent and expand the talent even, and because we're going back to a rookie contract with a quarterback and win, um, do the similar what we have here, and if the answer is yes, then you know, everybody's what's Plan B. Well, Plan B gets that's on something to find. Now the Dolphins went 20 years without having a. Well, I don't know. What would Tannehill do? What would a Tannehill? What would another guy Mike McDaniel handpicked and groomed and raised up? What could he do? That'd be the question. But I look at San Francisco. I look at San Francisco, and again, there are two models to win big in the NFL. One's with a Patrick Mahomes, lesser talent. How many Patrick Mahomes? There's probably five guys who can do that in the league, maybe. Um, and the rest, and then there's the San Francisco model. You get a almost, I don't want to say a replaceable quarterback because not everybody can step in there, as we saw. They wasted a number three draft pick on a quarterback who
Yep.
couldn't play it, and so not everybody can do it, but it's not specific talent specific. There's a system too that helps, and so could you slip in trade a Garoppolo for a Purdy and still have everything clicking in the offense and go to the Super Bowl? But those are the two models to me for how to win in the NFL right now.
No, and again, the Dolphins do have a lot of similarities to the 49ers, and that's the big question when you talk about to how much of it is him, how much of it is the system, and that's there is no definitive answer. It's a matter of opinion. Quickly wanted to move on. This is a top 100 list done by.
I'm glad we're beyond the contract talk.
Yes, I mean that's
it gets sticky because it's again, but move on. It's a tough topic. It's a tough contract to do.
Yeah, but you know what the good thing about it though is that you can discuss it and present viewpoints and not get like outrageous comments from fans who get in their feelings about it because everybody's very rational and can really listen and digest the points you're trying. Oh, wait a second. No, sorry. I kid. So top 100 list of the top players in the NFL per our good friend Pete Prisco at CBS Sports. And I'm just going to give them, it's just if you have any thoughts either in terms of how they are ranked per Dolphins players and then overall in the league. So Tyreek Hill was number 4. Jalen Waddle was 42. Jalen Ramsey was 43. Javon Holland was 63 and Tua was 65. He was 11th among quarterbacks, if I remember correctly. Anything about that strike you as?
Who are we missing? Are we missing anybody?
I think honorable mentions were Jalen Phillips was one of them, and they may have been, I think there might have been Teron Armstead, maybe, but I'm not 100% sure.
Look, Tyreek Hill, you can put him anywhere in the top, right up there, and that's he's the catalyst to everything on this team. So number 4 sounds good to me. Waddle 43. I think you're giving some benefit of the doubt there, just because from a health standpoint, he wasn't. Can he be that impactful? Yes. Was he that impactful? Not last year. Jalen Ramsey 43 is interesting in that he's going to have a bigger role this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so you better hope he's 43. My concern isn't with his talent or his ambition. It's and probably I'm probably a little paranoid because of the injuries on the Dolphins. But here's a guy with a lot of wear and tear on his body. He's over 30 now. and you're expanding his role. So I'm curious, I need to see it play out, but does he have the talent? Yeah. D- can his body hold up if you're asking him to do a lot of things? And that's what I guess I need to see. That's what I'm curious in a long season.
Okay. Yeah, I was surprised if we're ranking the Dolphin players, and I know a lot of the outlets are doing that, and maybe I should. I just don't know if I feel like diving into that pool. I I don't know that I put Waddles as a second best player on the Dolphin roster, even though he's very very good.
Well, I'm surprised. If there's one I'm surprised, it's Javon Holland.
Yeah.
And not that we've seen flashes of him being that good. End of his rookie year, I thought they hit a home run with this guy because how great he.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've seen games, he's not making enough plays. That's the bottom line. Doesn't make enough big plays for me, or impact the game on a consistent basis. There are flash moments.
Mm-hmm.
You see it, but here we are, what, 3 years in?
Yep.
And I'm surprised he's that high.
He's got, yeah, to me, he's a guy whose reputation around the league and around the national media far surpasses what he's done so far. And I think I'm with you. At the end of his rookie season, it was like, oh, yeah, that dude can play. But I'd like to see more. So, last topic before we let you go, and I don't know why it bothers me, because this is a kind of a side conversation to those who want the throwback uniforms and all that, which are all great in that. But if we're talking about like maybe historical stuff, can we retire Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas's jersey numbers already if nobody else is ever going to wear them? I mean, seriously. I mean, geez.
My pet peeve is the constant uniform discussion. And I'm not 14. I don't care what uniforms they wear. I get, the throwbacks look nice. I'm with everybody. They look nice, but I could care less. So okay. To your topic, if they aren't going to give him out, should they retire him? Is what you're saying, right?
I mean, what's the point? I mean, again, and can I preface this by saying I'm not a fan of retiring jerseys because, again, what's the criteria? Is it Hall of Fame? Is it championships? Is it Hall of Fame plus championships? For example, why is Larry Little's number not retired? He's in the Hall of Fame. He was a member of the 72 Dolphins. Why is Dwight Stevenson, who may have been the best center in the history of the NFL, why is his jersey number not retired? But Marino's. So, do you saying,
do you want them to be, if you were in favor of retiring jerseys, which you're not, but if you were, would you want these two to be retired?
Yes.
Okay, but then you want Littles and Stevensons and all those to be retired
again.
too.
But you're going to run out of numbers at some point. But this is also partly, you will run out of numbers in training camp, but you can do duplicate numbers in training camp. Currently, Dolphins have two number 16s, Jake Bailey and Gavin Hardison. But no, this is why I'm not huge on retiring numbers, even though I understand it. My whole point is, again, the dudes have been retired for more than a decade. Nobody's worn 54. Nobody's worn 99. Okay, and
I think that's part of the. Again, I think I brought this up, but maybe it was with you when Dan Dowd back to the 70s. And I went there in the 70s. Believe it or not, I am old, but I'm not quite that old. But the stories was Dan Dowd was the equipment manager. He refused to give out Larry Zonka's number 39. Nobody could wear it. That was his decision. So is this a corporate decision among the Dolphin higher ups, or is this somebody just saying, regardless, I have no problem with retiring the jersey. I enjoy, those moments of nostalgia and reflective fun, and Zach and Jason Taylor certainly, because there's very few moments of reflective fun in the last 20 years, say, of the Dolphins. And so I have no problem if they would retire their jerseys.
No, and they've also dropped like the honor roll, doing this, like Cam Wake was the best Dolphin player in the 2010s. He should be on the honor roll, but
exactly. Yeah, get him back here because I've heard he's lost. He's down to marathon running size or something like this. So I'm curious to see him get out there, and which is what he always said he would do. He was going to lose a lot of weight when he quit football. So it's
Mhm.
good to see he kept up his promise. But yeah, Cam Wake should definitely be there. Um, but
But
we can go back again. As you know, you edited the book on the 72 Dolphins I
yeah,
wrote. And so the guy I'm always mystified is Joe Thomas. He drafted and traded and got virtually most of the 72, that dynastic run in the early 70s. He was the GM that brought it all together. And then Shula came in, and as there was little fiefdom wars, and Shula naturally won. But why isn't Joe Thomas's name up on the honor roll? I mean, so I get nobody knows him now. That's the bottom line of why his name isn't up there. But
yeah.
if
No, take a point. But again, we're more concerned about what's going on with the 2024 Dolphins and the contract situation, which could
yeah,
be resolved any day now, or it could linger on into the season and into the next offseason. Who knows? On that note, again, please like, subscribe. I want to say a big thanks to my buddy Dave Hyde from the South Florida Sun Sentinel.
good,
Sir?
good talking to you, Alan. Good talking Dolphins. I'm glad to be. We're only a few weeks from training camp. It's
Mm-hmm.
come up quick.
I know you have been Panther intensive. Are you going to the parade on Sunday?
I'm not. I'm not going to go to the parade. I've seen enough of the celebration that I'm celebrated out.
Okay, well, as we'll hold you to this though, as you mentioned, you will be expected to attend when the Dolphins have their Super Bowl parade in February of 2025. There you go. The great Dave Hyde, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. You all have a good weekend. We'll pod again sometime early next week. Until then, everyone have a great weekend. As I look for the logo here to put. Nope, wrong one. Whoops, see? You know what? We'll skip it. We'll just say goodbye. Have a good one, everyone.